The following program is a production of WLRN.
Everybody is doing all they can to give everybody as much lead time and notice as possible. If the responsibility is really on each and every one of us, whether we live here, work here, play here part-time during the year, the responsibility at that point is really on us to take action to protect our life, our family, and our property.
Hurricane season is here. As forecasters and residents prepare, is the insurance industry prepared to help us protect our homes? Find out tonight on Perspectives.
And welcome to Perspectives. I'm your host, Judith Remekie. And joining me tonight in the studio is Mr. Alex Soto, immediate past president of the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of America, and Senator Stephen Geller, Senate Minority Leader. Thank you guys both so much for joining us.
Delighted. Thank you for having us, Jude.
Great. Alex, I want to start with you. Could you briefly just explain how long you've been in the insurance industry in South Florida and what changed after Hurricane Andrew in particular?
Goodness.
Good question.
I started in the industry about 1972 when I was 4. Not true, but I had been in it for a long, long time and had the misfortune of going through Hurricane Andrew.
Senator Geller, explain for the viewers when and why you began to see a need for change and reform in the Florida insurance industry from what you could see.
Well, there's an issue called time risk.
Okay.
And then there's the underwriting risk. Let me give you a simple example of how that would work.
And make sure and as we talk about this, I know as a consumer of homeowners insurance and a South Florida resident, a lot of this information, even as a talk show host who's been researching and doing interviews, is very complicated. It goes over your head, and the average consumer wants to know, how can I get the best homeowners insurance rate? How can I be protected when there's a storm? Mm-hmm. How do a lot of these issues that I know maybe jumping ahead slightly, but how basically explain the main issue. What's the most important issue that homeowners need to keep in mind as we look at the realities of being insured for your home in Florida?
Mitigation, mitigation, mitigation.
Okay.
And that works. That will help the state of Florida, and it will help the individual homeowner.
At the top of the show, that was NBC6 meteorologist John Gerard, who has been forecasting weather for about 25 years, 15 of them right here in South Florida. I spoke with John about the unique experience of being both a veteran hurricane forecaster and a South Florida homeowner.
If I come home and the shutters were already up, because I've got a really good neighbor, while I'm at work, then I know the message got out. You know, I see people driving past my house every day when there is a hurricane watch, and I know they're waiting to see if I'm putting my shutters up. So we have to go overboard to make sure we reach everybody, because people's viewing habits are all over the place, you know.
So those were some interesting points. I know a lot of times, even at my house, my mom and dad talk about how they don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. But the point John brought up about being prepared. I want to talk, even though it sounds like a lot of times I think viewers think it sounds like your mother nagging you about eating your vegetables. But the reality is, what is the homeowner's responsibility as far as being prepared in a storm, and how important is that as we talk about insurance as a whole in the state of Florida?
Let me make this comment, and I'll tie it to the comment that the senator made a moment ago.
Okay.
It's absolutely important, imperative that each and every one of us protect our homes and our property and our families to the highest degree that we can.
Let me jump in again, because I want to get to a point, again, with us, the viewer, us, the homeowner. I want you to listen one more time as John Gerard talks about the National Hurricane Center and the recent shift in their focus with regard to hurricane predictions.
I'm always tracking hurricanes. The question is, how many will affect South Florida? And that is a question that we can never answer 3, 6, 9 months in advance. Sometimes it's a question that can't be answered even 3 days away. To give numbers, I think it's something that's really impossible to quantify. And I really think it does more harm than good to give numbers, because people get a false sense of security if they hear a small number.
Okay, I want to briefly talk about the point John brought up. I do think a lot of viewers would agree that there does end up being a little bit of a false sense of security sometimes when we hear there's not going to be that many storms this year, when we haven't had as many storms as we have in very active hurricane times.
It only takes one hurricane.
And let me ask you this, based on that comment, Do we notice, in fact, an increase in the number of hurricane claims after we've had a relatively inactive hurricane season or a couple of seasons? All of a sudden one storm comes, and do the number of claims increase, or do we not know that for certain?
No, I'm not so sure that that's the case. We do get lulled a little bit into a false sense of security. I remind you that Andrew was almost the only hurricane that year.
I do want to talk quickly about some of the problems that happen with the claims process once damage is done to your home during a hurricane. So let's listen one more time as John Gerard shares his own experience.
Filed an insurance claim after Hurricane Wilma, went right through our home in Broward County, and it was, let's just say it was a sticky process. Don't forget, we've got the best building code in the entire country right here in South Florida, and I think that caught a lot of insurance companies and their out-of-town adjusters by surprise.
I want to ask you, Alex, based on what John's experience was, and I want to thank John for sharing that personal story, what kinds of things did the insurance industry take most recently from the most recent wave of very serious, hurricane conditions? So, some of the things he mentioned were, the out-of-state adjusters, the prices.
Sure.
Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, there's always a learning curve, and you learn something from every hurricane and every incident.
Do you think there are, I know, I hate to bring this up, but I think a lot of times you deal with insurance agents who are not that patient in explaining some of these things. I've tried to have some of these issues. Some of the issues you've brought up, both of you, I've done, and some I haven't because I didn't know to ask. Is there one place that homeowners in South Florida can go to? You mentioned one before.
The Insurance Information Institute, the III.org, has all kinds of good information in terms of how to deal with insurance agents and companies, ask the right questions, get the right information, and protect your home.
Okay, that's a good last word. That's a good place to end. I'd like to thank Alex Soto and Senator Stephen Geller. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight and giving us that pertinent information. I'd also like to thank John Gerard and the National Hurricane Center for your participation in this show. And good night to everyone.
The preceding program was a production of WLRN Public Television.